Good day, everyone. This is Gallarde, and our first topic for today is all about
Philosophies of education.
what makes a teacher. There are so many different ways to teach, varying circumstances to take into account, and philosophies to apply to each classroom. And what better way to have a positive impact on the world than to offer knowledge for consumption? Before anything else, let me ask you these existential questions that you can ponder upon. And in the school context, why do I teach? What should I teach? How should I teach? What is the nature of the learner? How do we learn? These are the questions that we came up with to answer with the philosophies of education. There are 5 major philosophies of education, namely essentialism, progressivism, perennialism, existentialism, and lastly, behaviorism. Let's start off with essentialism. Why teach? This philosophy contends that teachers teach for learners to acquire basic knowledge, skills, and values. And also for what to teach, basic skills or the fundamental are such as reading, writing, arithmetic, and right conduct. Curriculum includes the traditional disciplines such as math, natural sciences, history, foreign language, and literature. How to teach? Essentialist teachers emphasize mastery of subject matter. They are expected to be intellectual and moral models of their students. Essentialists believe that there is a universal pool of knowledge needed by all students. The fundamentals of teaching are the basis of the curriculum. Classrooms are formal, teacher-centered, and students are passive learners. Next up is the progressivism or the pragmatism or experimentalism. What to teach? Need-based and relevant curriculum. This is a curriculum that responds to students' needs and that relates to students' personal lives and experiences. More concerned with teaching the learners the skills to cope change. Change is the only thing that does not change. Natural and social sciences. Teachers expose students to many new scientific, technological, and social developments reflecting the progressivist notion that progress and change are fundamental. How to teach? Progressivist teachers employ experiential methods. They believe that one learns by doing. By John Dewey, problem-solving method makes use of the scientific method. So in progressivism, this is a student-centered form of instruction where students follow the scientific method of questioning and searching for the answer. Current events are used to keep students interested in the required subject matter. Students are active learners as opposed to passive learners. The teacher is a facilitator rather than the center of the educational process. Let's go to the third one, perennialism or the rational humanism. Why teach? To develop the students' rational and moral powers. Belief in the primacy of reason and in the human's ability to make rational judgments about the goodness of things, according to Adler and Hutchin. What to teach? The perennialist curriculum is a universal one on the view that all human beings possess the same essential nature, heavy on humanities and general education. Great books. Why teach? To help students understand and appreciate themselves as unique individuals who accept complete responsibility for their thoughts, feelings, and actions. Perennialism. The perennialists are instructors who feel that the knowledge that has been passed through the ages should be continued as the basis of the curriculum. Like the classic works of Plato and Einstein, perennialists base their teachings on reason, logic, and analytical thought. Only information that stood the test of time is relevant. For the fourth one, humanism or existentialism. Why teach? Existence precedes essence. Education of the whole person, not just the mind. What to teach? Gives a wide variety of options from which to choose. Emphasis on the humanities. How to teach? Focuses on the individual. Learning is self-paced, self-directed, and individual contact with the teacher. Teachers remain non-judgmental and take care not to impose their values on the students, since values are personal. So humanism or existentialism Also, a student-centered philosophy, this educational method is based on the idea that the students should be presented with choices about the learning process. The student is engaged in all aspects of learning and works together with the teacher and her peers to develop a curriculum and evolution system that allows for individual interests and abilities. And lastly, we have behaviorism. Why teach? Student's behavior is a product of his environment. Next, what to teach? Teach students to respond favorably to various stimuli in the environment. So behaviorists believe in rewards and punishments as an approach to controlling the teaching environment due to their belief in the intrinsic nature of humans to react to internal and external stimuli. This teacher-centered system ultimately allows the students to be controlled by the educator, who makes the environment pleasant or unpleasant depending on the student's behavior. We have here other philosophies according to Isner. For the definition and examples of these philosophies, please click this link for the document. Have a great day ahead, future licensed professional teachers. This has been Shabilita Gallarde.
Good day everyone, my name is Farah Eunice LAZARRAGA, and my topic for today is all about the historical foundation of education. The belief and experiences of education today rest on the history of this field of endeavor. By knowing what accomplishments of leaders in the past, today's educators attempt to build on their achievements. Let's start off with primitive education. Primitive education, life among primitive or tribal people was very simple compared with the complex life that people have today. Their means of livelihood were hunting and gathering wild fruits and vegetables. There was no reading or writing, and information was transmitted through word of mouth, songs, gesture, ceremonial, rites, and the like. Next is the aim of primitive education. First, security and survival. Second, conformity is the process whereby people change their beliefs, attitudes, actions, and perceptions to more closely match those held by groups to which they belong or want to belong, or by groups whose approval they desire. Third, preservation and transmission of traditions. These are some characteristics of primitive culture: relatively simple, relatively narrow social and cultural contacts, extraordinary conservative and prone to superstitious. The organization of primitive life is tribal, not political, so that one function of education is to enable one to live with his relatives. Absence from primitive cultures of reading and writing. There are two types of primitive education. First, vocational. This includes learning the skills in procuring the basic necessities of life like hunting, constructing a hut, and etc. Second, religious, animistic, consisted in learning how to participate in ritualistic practices to please or to appease the unseen spirit roaming around. Next is the Egyptian education. Egypt, the gift of the Nile, is situated in the northern part of the African continent. Ancient Egypt was a desert country watered only by the Nile River, which flooded the country from August to October, leaving behind a very rich black earth. The government of Egypt was autocratic, ruled by a king called Pharaoh who had absolute power. Aims of Egyptian education: training of scribes, religious, utilitarian, and preservation of cultural patterns. Now, we have here the types of education. First, religious education. Second, vocational professional education. Third, military education. Fourth, public administration. Fifth, priesthood education. And last, home arts of education. Furthermore, the outstanding contributions of early Egyptians to education were probably geometrical measurement and surveying. Third is Greek education. The Greeks are a mixture of the Aryan and Germanic people, two great races. But because of their presence of natural barriers such as mountain and bodies of water, they live in a tribal isolation and develop differences. They considered it as an honor to serve their country in any capacity. There were many Greek city-states, but two of them rose above all others. These were Sparta and Athens. Let's start with Spartan education. Sparta was in the south of Corinth in the southern section of the Peloponnesian Peninsula. Spartan education was based upon the laws of Lycurgus. It was the basis of Spartan political, social, and educational system. This turned Sparta into a totalitarian soldier state. This system lasted for 700 years from the 9th to the 2nd century BC, especially during the 5th century. Let's proceed to the second one, Athenian education. Ancient Athens was the leading cultural center of the Greek world. Many of the most gifted writers of Greece live there. They wrote works of drama, history, lyric, poetry, and philosophy that have influenced literature up to present time. In many ways, the city was birthplace of Western civilization. Education was supervised by the state, although education was not compulsory. It was not clear, however, if the state maintained public schools. Let's proceed to the later Athenian education. Athens became an empire in 479 BC with the Greeks defeated the Persian at the Battle of Plataea. Athens, the head of Delian Confederation, contributed largely to the victory. The triumph brought about attitudinal changes toward education among Athenians. Let's proceed to Roman education. Italian peninsula was occupied by Italians, Etruscans, and Greek who was settled in Sicily and in the south. The Italian tribes were the Sabellian, the Umbrians, and the Latins. Out of the mixture of these peoples emerged the strong, energetic Romans. These peoples also developed city-states, and the Latium, the city-state of Rome, became the most powerful. The Romans judged things by their usefulness. For the aims of education, first, utilitarian. Education was for practical purpose, to produce men who would be active and efficient in daily life. Second, moral, to produce good citizens who knew how to exercise their rights, fulfill their duties and obligation, and acquire virtues such as pity, obedience, manliness, courage, bravery, industry, honesty, prudence, and etc. Third, military, to train to be good soldiers and conqueror in war. Fourth, civic and political, to train men to be participative in wise in politics. Fifth, religious, to train men to have reverence for the gods.
Good day, everyone. This is Gallarde, and for the part 2 of this lesson, we have here as a continuation the Philippine educational system, composed of the Spanish contribution, American contribution, Japanese contribution, and the present educational system. Let's start with pre-Spanish period before 1512. The curriculum required the study of Christian doctrine, values, and history, as well as reading and writing in Spanish, mathematics, agriculture, etiquette, singing, world geography, and Spanish history. Girls were also taught sewing. The normal school run by the Jesuits was also established, which gave men the opportunity to study a 3-year teacher education for the primary level. Normal schools for women teachers were not established until 1875 in Nueva Cáceres. Moving on to the Spanish period in 1521 to 1896. Spanish contribution. Education was formal. Established schools from the primary level to the tertiary level of education. Focused on the Christian doctrines. Separate school for boys, colegios, and girls, beaterio. Ilustrados were accommodated in the schools. Missionary teachers, the friars, replaced the tribal tutors. Catholic doctrine schools that were set up initially became parochial schools which taught reading and writing along with catechism. Education Decree of 1863 mandated the establishment of free primary schools in each town, one for boys and one for girls, with the precise number of schools depending on the size of the population. There were 3 grades in that time: the entrada, ascenso, and termino. Now, let's proceed to their methods of teaching. First, catechetical instruction. B, use of corporal punishment. C, rote memorization. And D, instruction was in dialect. Now, moving on to the American contribution in the year 1898 to 1935. Let's start with the American contributions. Course of study is prescribed, uniform, and centralized. Formal, structured, and existence of an educational system. In 1899, more schools were opened, this time with 24 English language teachers and 4,500 students. Next is the Japanese contribution in 1941 to 1944. These are the basic principles of Japanese education. First is to stop depending on Western countries like the US and Great Britain. Promote and enrich the Filipino culture. Second, to recognize that the Philippines is a part of the Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere so that the Philippines and Japan will have good relations. And third, to be aware of materialism to raise the morality of the Filipinos. And fourth, to learn and adopt Nippongo and to stop using the English language. Fifth, to spread elementary and vocational education. And sixth, but not the least, to develop love for work. And for the last part, the present education system in the Philippines, the 1946 to present. The Philippine education system was patterned to the educational systems of Spain and the United States. After the liberation of the Philippines in 1946, Filipinos had moved in various directions of its own. Elementary and high school is compulsory, which is administered by the Department of Education. In 2010, Senator Benigno Aquino III expressed his desire to implement the K-12 basic education cycle to increase the number of years of compulsory education to 13 years. Kindergarten Education Act of 2012, Kindergarten Compulsory. Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013. School year 2011 to 2012, DepEd has already implemented the K-12 program, and it was still enacted into law to guarantee its continuity in the succeeding years. This has been Chabelita Gallarde.
And this is Farah Eunice LAZARRAGA.
Have a great day ahead, future licensed professional teachers.
Good day everyone, I am Franclia Marie Silvano. The topic that I will discuss for today is all about the Constitution, foundations of education. But before anything else, I want to share to you the objectives of this lesson. At the end of the report, we will be able to identify constitutional provisions that serve as basis or foundation of Philippine educational system and cite examples or evidences of implication of these constitutional provisions in our current educational setting. First, let's talk about the relationship between education and the state. In a democratic state like the Philippines, it is essential that the citizens are literate, socially responsible, useful, and law-abiding. A very significant factor in education in our country is the assignment of the ultimate responsibility for the education of the citizens to the government. A glimpse at history. What are the constitutional provisions on education in the previous constitutions? Let's start first with the Spanish period. The Malolos Constitution of 1899 declared that the Philippines was a free state. Creation of the Council of Government. Councils of Governments or COGs are voluntary associations that represent member local governments, mainly cities and counties, that seek to provide cooperative planning, coordination, and technical assistance on issues of mutual concern that cross jurisdictional lines. One of the 7 cabinet positions created was public education based on Article 9, Section 73. Article 73, the Council of Government is composed of 1 President and 7 secretaries, each of whom shall have under his charge the portfolios of foreign relations, interior, finance, war, and marine, public education, communications and public works, and agriculture, industry, and commerce. Next is Philippine Constitution of 1935. Reaffirm the existence of public educational department as legal, based on Article 7, Section 11, Subsection 1. Provide aid and support to parents in rearing the youth for civil efficiency, based on Article 2, Section 4. Due to our limited time, we will provide a document of these articles on this link. Next is Philippine Constitution of 1973, Article 2, Sections 4 to 7. Focus on strengthening the family as a social institution regarding the vital role of the youth in nation building and promoting their physical, intellectual, social, moral, and spiritual well-being and establishing, maintaining, and ensuring adequate social services in education. Article 15, Section 8 to 11. Complete, adequate, and integrated system of education relevant to the goals of national development. Next is the 1987 Constitution. The Constitution provides what the nature of educational system in the Philippines shall be. The educational system, as envisioned in the Constitution, is a system that is national in scope with public and private schools as subsystems. There are 3 articles in the Philippine Constitution of 1987 that deals directly or indirectly with the educational system in the Philippines. These are Article 2, Declared Policies of the State. Article 14, Education, Science and Technology, Arts, Culture, and Sports. Article 15, Provisions for the Family and Filipino Children. These three specific articles are with concern to the educational system in the Philippines. It tackles about certain direct and indirect concern and within the scope of our educational system. What kind of education is envisioned in the Constitution? The kind of education that is envisioned in the Constitution is quality education, a complete, adequate, and integrated system of education relevant to the needs of the people and society. And the state must ensure that all citizens can access this envisioned system of education. In Article 15, provisions for the family and Filipino children. In addition to all of this, the state is also mandated to protect and defend the right of children to assistance, including proper care and nutrition, and special protection from all forms of neglect, abuse, cruelty, exploitation, and other conditions prejudicial to their development, as well as the right of families or family associations to participate in the planning and implementation of policies and programs that affect them. Let me share to you this quote from Simon Bolivar. The first duty of the government is to give education to people. And as a reminder, please visit this link for the document of the articles. This has been Franclia Marie Silvano. Have a great day ahead, future licensed professional teachers.